But several groups estimate more than 134,000 Iraqis have been killed. And the U.S. price tag for the war, well, that has topped $800 billion. But several analysts say the ultimate cost to the U.S. could run into the trillions. Well, early into the Iraq war, CNN's Awa Damon was one of the leading journalists in the region, bringing Iraq's stories to the world. This month, she returned to a different Iraq and revisited people and places she covered throughout the conflict.
There is a bustle to Baghdad's streets that suggests routine, a normal. But this is still a city of blast walls and checkpoints. The violence that ripped Iraq apart after 2003 permeates everything.
Where those boys are right now with their bikes, that is where the vehicles would pull up. The victim would be dragged out of the trunk and then shot in cold blood. In those days, you wouldn't see children gathered here for a game of soccer. Instead, they would all have been crowded around witnessing an execution.
As we were recently filming along the river, our Iraqi producer Mohammed could not help but to remind me of more grim moments.
At the peak of the sectarian violence, people were regularly recovering dead, bloated corpses from the waters of the Tigris River that winds its way through Baghdad, cutting it in two.
We had just spent the afternoon on Mutanabbi, or Book Street, which had seen its own horrors.
This here is Baghdad's Mutanabbi Street. It's where you can find all sorts of books and old magazines and newspapers. It's a historic meeting place for the country's intellectuals to come here, go shopping, gather at cafes, debating anything from politics to poetry. But it has been targeted in the past, the most devastating of which was an attack that happened in March of 2007.
Some say that massive blast tore out the soul of this street. Sure, it's busy today, but the revival you see is now brittle. The place is haunted by the past.
Wow, so this is from the Ottoman Empire. It's the oldest Iraqi currency that he's got here. It's around 100 years old, he's just saying right now.
Adnan Sheikhli says he's been here for the past 50 years, still alive because he was sick the week of the bombing. His stand is just outside the iconic Shah Bandar Cafe, a longtime intellectual hub. The owner, Haji Muhammad, was friendly, happy to let us film. But then we asked him for an interview, and he instantly hardened.
4 of the owner's sons and his grandson were killed in that 2007 attack. We wanted to speak to him today. He has spoken to CNN in the past, but this time he refused. He was still carrying, understandably, so much pain and anger. He said, "I don't want to speak to any American networks. America killed my sons. Bush killed my sons."
And that is the logic of many Iraqis. Although the country was ravaged by insurgent bombings, the Americans were ultimately to blame. For most of them, the last decade is not defined by the moment of Saddam Hussein's capture or execution, or even free elections. It's the memory of the last time they saw a loved one, before they were inexplicably, randomly murdered, or of cheating death themselves. Many say they hardly recognize their country anymore. And they say real hope for the future becomes harder to find.
Our thanks to Awa Damon and her team for her incredible reporting that she did throughout the war and in the years that have followed. When we come back, we're taking you to a region of Iraq for a look at what used to be one of al-Qaeda's greatest strongholds. Stay with us.